What do you do when someone disrespects you? Do you fire back, defend your pride, or show them who's boss? No. Today, I'll show you why silence, cold, calculating silence, is your greatest weapon. Most people sabotage themselves by reacting emotionally, but you're not most people. You're going to learn the art of dominance through silence, the Machiavellian way. Throughout history, power has belonged not to the loudest, but to the most disciplined. The man who speaks little watches everything. He lets others reveal their weaknesses while he sharpens his mind in silence. Today, I offer you the weapon most men overlook, the strategic silence after disrespect. When someone disrespects you, your first instinct is to react. The pulse quickens, your jaw clenches, your pride roars for justice. You want to say something. No, you want to destroy them right there, right then. The slap of a retort, the dagger of a comeback, a public shaming to match the offense that you think is strength. But let me tell you something most men will never understand. The moment you react instantly, without calculation, without pause, you have already lost. Because that reaction is not yours. It belongs to your enemy. They reached inside you, twisted your pride, and puppeteered your anger like a marionette. They control you. Your words triggered your emotions, predictable, and your value diminished in front of everyone watching. This is where the average man fails. He thinks reaction is power. But the truly powerful man, he plays the long game. He understands that revenge is a dish best served cold. What does that mean? It means you never strike when you're emotional. You never act when your ego is still bleeding. You don't retaliate on impulse. You wait. You listen. You memorize. You let the silence speak while you gather data, power, leverage. Your silence doesn't mean you're defeated. It means you're processing. It means you've chosen strategy over sensation. When they expect rage, you give them a wall. No words, no emotion, just the blank stare of someone who's calculating your expiration date. And here's what happens when you do that. The enemy becomes uncertain. They wanted a fight, but now they have a mystery. They start to wonder, did I go too far? Why didn't he say anything? Is he planning something? That silence, it lives in their head rent-free. It haunts them far more than any insult ever could. And in that silence, something else is happening, something critical. You are evolving. Because in stillness, you see things. You notice the patterns. You observe how they speak, how they move, who they're aligned with. You study not just the insult, but the structure around the insult. And when the time comes, when the pieces align and your enemy is exposed, you don't just reply, you dismantle. You burn down their credibility, their pride, their perception, brick by calculated brick. But here's the best part. While they wasted their energy in the moment, you kept yours. While they laughed at what they thought was your weakness, you quietly built the blade that would one day cut their ego in half. And when it happens, they will remember not just the strike, but the fact that you waited. You made them forget the insult and then turned their own arrogance into a weapon. Think of any master strategist in history. Caesar, Sun Tzu, Bismarck. They didn't react to insults. They absorbed them. They archived them. They let them mature like poison wine, saving it for a moment when the enemy's guard was down and the stakes were higher. Because anyone can win a petty argument. That's easy. But destroying someone's position permanently, that takes patience. That takes ice in the veins. That takes a man who understands that timing is more powerful than truth. And make no mistake, when you stay quiet after disrespect, people will misread you. They will think you're soft. That's perfect. Let them build that fantasy in their head. Because the more they believe it, the less they prepare for you. The less they defend themselves. The more vulnerable they become. You do not owe the world an emotional performance. You are not a court jester juggling insults for applause. You are the architect of your vengeance. Cold, precise, invisible. And when the moment arrives, when the curtain falls, you won't be arguing. You won't be yelling. You won't even need to explain. You'll act once, decisively, and with the kind of force that rewrites reputations and changes rooms when you enter them. Now ask yourself, who really holds the power? The one who fires back in the heat of anger, or the one who holds the trigger and waits, watches, smiles to himself in silence while the rest of the world forgets. Perception, that invisible lens through which the world sees you. It's not who you are that matters. It's who they think you are. Your power, your influence, your threat level, it all depends on the image you project. And when someone disrespects you, they're not just testing your patience. They're testing your appearance of power. So what do most people do? They react loudly, emotionally. They try to prove their strength with outbursts and clever words. They try to control perception with noise. But here's the truth. Every word you speak in anger reduces your mystery, and mystery is the oxygen of power. A man who is unreadable, unbothered, and unpredictable, he commands a different kind of respect, not because he asks for it, but because people imagine what he's capable of. And the imagination, my friend, is far more terrifying than the truth. When you stay silent after disrespect, you give them nothing. No weakness, no crack in the armor. You become a blank screen onto which they project their fears, doubts, and theories. Is he offended? Is he planning something? Is he weak or is he dangerous? The uncertainty eats at them. They can't label you, and what they can't label, they can't control. That is the essence of psychological warfare. Let them wonder. Let them squirm in the space between the disrespect and your reaction. Let the silence stretch. It creates a vacuum, and nature, especially human nature, hates a vacuum. So what do? They start overthinking, second-guessing, doubting their move, because you've given them nothing to respond to. And in that nothing, their mind invents everything. You don't need to say you're strong. The illusion is more powerful than the declaration. You see, when a man tries to prove himself, he's already confessed that there's something to doubt. But the one who remains quiet, he becomes a myth, and a myth is harder to destroy than in politics. This is the most potent tool. Kings and rulers understood this. The silent monarch was never questioned. The general who didn't respond to provocation made the enemy hesitate. Because perception, once forged correctly, becomes armor. People begin to protect your reputation for you. They'll say, he didn't respond because he doesn't have to, or he must have something planned. They begin crafting your image on your behalf, and all you did was stay quiet. That's real power. When someone disrespects you and you respond with silence, you steal the spotlight from the insult and place it on your presence. Suddenly, the story isn't what they said. It's how you didn't react. That silence becomes the loudest part of the room. It shifts attention from the offender to the one who held his composure, and in the eyes of others, that is strength, that is dominance, that is control. But don't mistake this for cowardice. This isn't about shrinking. It's about elevating yourself above the battlefield. Because only the desperate fight every war. The powerful choose which wars deserve their attention, and that selectiveness becomes part of their myth. People will talk. That's inevitable. But when you're silent, they can't predict you. They can't prepare for you. And that unpredictability, that's what keeps enemies cautious. They don't fear what you said. They fear what you might do. And as long as you stay unreadable, you are dangerous. Even your allies, your inner circle, must learn to live with your silence. Because when no one can fully decode you, no one can fully manipulate you. They may try, but they'll always fall short because perception is yours to control, and you control it not by revealing yourself, but by withholding yourself. You become the shadow in the room, the presence that doesn't need to raise its voice, the man whose silence isn't empty, but loaded. Every glance, every pause, every unspoken word becomes a symbol of restraint, of calculation, of hidden fire. They may talk about others loudly, but they whisper when they talk about you, and that is when you've won the perception war. Not through speeches, not through retaliation, but by mastering the one weapon they never see coming, silence. That forces the world to watch you more closely than they intended. Control is not loud. Control is not chaotic. Control is quiet. So quiet that most people don't even know it's happening, and that's exactly how it should be. When someone disrespects you, they are baiting you. They are pulling a string, hoping you'll dance, and most people do. They fire back, they rant, they defend their name. They fall into the trap willingly because their pride is louder than their judgment. But the man who understands power, he doesn't flinch because he knows one law that separates kings from pawns. The man who controls his response controls the game. In the moment of disrespect, everyone is watching, but they're not just watching them. They're watching you. They want to see if you can handle pressure. They want to see if you can handle your own emotions. They want to see if you are in command or if you're just another hot-headed fool who reacts to every minor insult. And here is where power begins, not in domination of others, but in domination of yourself. If they can predict your emotions, they can manipulate you. If they can provoke you, they can weaken you. But when you stay quiet, you deny them access. They can't read you. They can't move you. They throw their rocks, and you remain unmoved, untouched, unread. You become a wall, and in the presence of that stillness, they start to panic. Because control is a mirror, it reflects their chaos back onto themselves. When they shout and you do nothing, their words fall flat. When they gesture wildly and you remain composed, they look like fools. The crowd sees it. The energy shifts. Your silence becomes an indictment, not of you, but of them. They reveal their desperation. You reveal nothing. This is where your power builds, not in bursts, but in layers. Control gives you options. It gives you the power to decide when, how, and if you respond. You don't need to take every shot that's offered. You don't need to answer every challenge. You only strike when it's time to win, not when it's time to argue. And that difference is what separates rulers from rebels. A ruler doesn't fight for ego, he fights for position. He fights for control. He fights for results that shift power, not feelings. When you stay quiet, you hold the sword without swinging it. You let them talk. You let them guess. And while they expose their intentions, you keep yours hidden. They're running out of control, you're building it. You know what they don't? That silence is not weakness. It's a signal that you are above reaction, that you are listening, recording, collecting, and that one day, when all the conditions align, you'll respond, but not with noise, with precision. Because control isn't about being right. It's about being effective. It's about managing perception, pacing your moves, using time as an ally, not an enemy. It's about speaking only when your words will create impact, not when they're merely defending your pride. Ask yourself this: who is more powerful? The man who needs to prove he's not to be messed with, or the one who never acknowledges the insult because his power is already understood? When people know you don't react to small things, they stop throwing them. When they know you don't respond to every jab, they grow cautious. And when they realize they can't push you off your center, they begin to respect what they can't control. That's when real fear begins. Not the kind that screams, but the kind that waits, that watches, that choice. Because when you move from a place of control, every step you take carries weight. It's not just a reaction, it's a statement. You're not caught in their story, you're writing your own. Control lets you dictate pace. Control lets you conserve energy while they exhaust theirs. Control lets you position yourself so well that when you do decide to respond, it doesn't just silence the disrespect. It elevates your presence. It turns the table so sharply they wonder how they ever believed they had the upper hand. And the truth is, they never did. You just let them think they did. You made them comfortable. You made them speak. You made them reveal themselves. And you said nothing, because that's what control looks like from the outside. Still, cold, unshaken. But inside, it's a war strategy. It's a calculation. It's a man playing chess while they're still throwing stones. There is a humiliation far more devastating than insults, a defeat sharper than any comeback. It's not found in arguments or retaliation. It's found in silence. Cold, deliberate, sovereign silence. The kind that doesn't just ignore the offender, but erases them, reduces them to background noise, makes them feel for a moment like they don't exist. When someone disrespects you, they are playing a game where the prize is your reaction. And most people, eager, angry, emotional, they take the bait. They engage. They argue. They fall into the pit of pointless words. But what they don't realize is that responding gives their disrespect validity. It gives the offender confirmation that their words landed, that they matter, that they got under your skin. But when you meet that disrespect with silence, that's a different experience entirely. You don't just withhold your words, you withhold recognition. You deny them the only thing they came for, significance. And in that denial, something brutal happens. The moment becomes hollow. The sting of their insult bounces back onto them, unreturned, unacknowledged, unimportant. And make no mistake, people feel that loudly because humans crave attention, even in conflict, especially in conflict. When you don't give it to them, you force them into a mirror with only their own voice echoing back. That echo, that's not power, that's emptiness. And for the weak, it is unbearable. They may laugh, pretend they're unaffected, but inside, they're collapsing. Because silence isn't passive. It's a message that says, "You are not on my level. You don't deserve my energy. You are so far beneath me, I won't even entertain this." And that kind of dismissal, that's humiliation they can't spin into victory. There's no trophy for being ignored. No audience claps for the man who was left talking to himself. But silence goes further. It does more than protect your dignity. It flips the dynamic. Because now the one who disrespected you starts to feel uncertain. Why didn't you respond? Are you planning something? Did you not even notice their insult? Or worse, did you notice it and decide it wasn't worth a single breath? That uncertainty breeds insecurity, and insecurity turns into paranoia, and paranoia, that's when people begin to unravel. You see, when you respond, they know where you stand. But when you're silent, you become unreadable, and what's unreadable is uncontrollable. What's uncontrollable is threatening. That's when the power shifts, not in your favor, but entirely into your hands. And that's when they start trying to fix it. Yes, some of the very same people who once disrespected you will try to crawl back. They'll reframe their words. They'll pretend it was a joke. They'll try to reconnect, because your silence didn't just humiliate them. It exposed them. It revealed how badly they needed your attention to feel important, and now they're scrambling to earn it again. Because whether people admit it or not, they measure their own worth by how others react to them. When you show that their words carry no weight, you rob them of their imaginary power. You make them realize they never held anything over you in the first place. It was all in their mind, and nothing cuts deeper than that realization. You don't need to shame them publicly. You don't need to match insult for insult. All you need to do is nothing, because silence doesn't just remove them from the battlefield. It denies them the privilege of battle altogether. And that denial, that quiet, cold shoulder, that's what breaks egos. That's what haunts people, not your fury, not your volume, but the fact that you never looked back, never gave them a second thought. You left them in a space where their insult didn't even echo. It just died, unnoticed, unimportant. That is the kind of humiliation no argument can match. Not because you outwitted them, but because you didn't acknowledge them. Not because you beat them, but because you made it clear they were never a worthy opponent to begin with. Because when power is real, it doesn't have to prove itself. It doesn't explain. It doesn't defend. It doesn't lower itself to trade insults in the mud. It just walks away, still, silent, sovereign, and in its absence, it leaves behind a silence that says more than 1,000 words ever could. In a world driven by noise, the man who masters silence becomes a phantom of power. Untouchable, unreadable, unforgettable. Disrespect is everywhere. It is petty. It is public. It is designed to pull you off your throne and into the dirt. But when you respond with restraint, with poise, with cold calculation, you do more than protect your dignity. You elevate it. Revenge is not found in reaction. It's found in precision. Perception is not built through words. It's shaped through mystery. Control is not taken with force. It's earned through discipline. And humiliation, it doesn't always come from confrontation. Sometimes the deepest wound is the one inflicted by silence. Let the world bark. Let small men throw stones. You stand still. You observe. You build. And when the time comes, you move like a shadow with a knife. One strike. No warning. No wasted energy. This is how power survives. This is how power speaks. Not with noise, but with silence that echoes longer than any scream. Stay quiet. Stay dangerous.